Yeah, Tuesday. Welcome into Writer's Block. I'm Erik Kuselias in for Bill. Thank you so much for being here. What a show we have today. How about Tag Your It? NFL franchise tag. Who's getting it? Who's not getting it? And speaking of not getting it, Antonio Brown apparently is now just a couple of steps away from doing sit-ups in his driveway like Terrell Owens will explain with Pete Prisco. And Manny Machado signs. One down, one to go. Does this mean San Diego isn't quite done yet? Or does this mean Philadelphia freedom for Mr. Bryce? We got that coming at you as well. Let's get to it. So Manny Machado is going to be 26 years old, living in Southern California, specifically San Diego, and he's going to be making $30 million a year for 10 years. It's pretty good to be Manny Machado. It's probably even better to be our GM, Jim Bowden. He jumps aboard so we can break this down and figure out what's what. So Jim, let's start here. You hear this, $300 million, 10 years. I want to give you credit. You said all along, remain calm, all is well. They're going to get the 10 years, $300 million when everybody else was screaming that, oh my goodness, nobody's offering these long-term deals. What does this deal say to you?
Well, it tells me, number one, that their players are still getting paid the market value. We had predicted 10 years, 310. He gets 10 years, 300. It also tells us that the small market teams in baseball can actually compete with the big market clubs as San Diego outbids the big market Chicago White Sox by a significant amount of money. And they end up landing Machado. So I think in terms of what the players are getting paid and how the smaller markets are doing and how they can compete, certainly it speaks volumes in this. And for the Padres, a really big signing for them. Not necessarily for 2019, maybe not for 2020, but for 2021, it sets them up nicely. It sets them up, which will be maybe one of the best infields in the game. When you think of Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., who's the second best prospect in the game, Luis Urias and Erik Kuselias, that infield is going to be set for years to come. And it's a very athletic infield with a lot of range, good offense in terms of average as well as power, and an infield that's going to be able to steal bases as well. So I think what the Padres have done today is very significant of their chances of winning in 2 or 3 years. And look, they've got work to do in their starting rotation, but they also have a farm system loaded with pitching prospects. So if only half of their pitching prospects come through, they're going to be in a really good position in a couple of years. I love the fact they went out and made this move. I think it's dramatic. I think it sends that red double exclamation emoji that's on my iPhone.
All right, I want to follow up on a couple of things that I just heard you say. First of all, you mentioned the White Sox. Did they finish second in this Machado sweepstakes? And, you know, look, when you see a deal like this, you hope that both sides do well, but it's never exactly equal. If you had to pick a winner, who did better, Machado or the Padres? Who won the deal?
Okay, so, I think, first of all, Manny Machado got market, 10 years, 300. So, he won. The fact is the two markets that are bigger, the White Sox and Phillies, ended up finishing second and third in that order. The White Sox had an 8-year deal on the table. It was a deal that was in the range of $280 million. And the Phillies deal, my understanding, their offer was a little bit less than that as well. Both teams came in at 8 years, and, Manny got 10 from the Padres. So, I think Manny wins because he took the most years and the most guaranteed dollars that was on the table for him. But the Padres also win because they stepped up. They gave the 10 years for a 26-year-old player. And while some of the big markets were upset about year 9 and year 10, look, Manny's going to be 34 and 35. When this contract is over, he's going to be younger than Robinson Cano. This isn't the same thing as the Pujols deal or the Votto deal or the Miguel Cabrera deal. This isn't a deal that takes him north of 35. So for the Padres to step up and do it, they win here too. So to me, it's a win-win for both the Padres and Machado. For the White Sox, it's a huge loss because I think they're going to end up being empty-handed when the free agent season is over. And for the Phillies, I still think they end up with Bryce Harper.
All right, so that works nicely into the final question here, and that is Bryce Harper. When he sees this deal, is that sound of popping I heard the champagne in Scott Boris's office for his client going, oh, good, he got his, now we're definitely get ours? Or do you not see a correlation because you still need a team to step up and give you 10 years, $300 million? How does this affect Bryce Harper?
I think Bryce Harper has had 10 years, $300 million from multiple clubs. Washington came out and publicly said it back in October, and I believe the Phillies offer is north of 10 years, $300 as well. And in fact, I'm being told that he will end up beating Giancarlo Stanton's deal, which is at $325 million, which makes sense to me. I had predicted 10 years at $320 for Harper. It may end up being 10 years at $330, but I think it's going to end up in that range. There has been a report today that possibly the Padres would sign both. I'm not sure that's going to be accurate, but I do think what happened when Machado signed with the Padres is there was a leverage shift here because the Phillies no longer can play the card of, well, if we don't sign Harper, we'll sign Machado. Now it's Harper or we go back to Kimbrel and Keuchel. But I kept hearing from last Friday, and I heard it again today, there continues to be momentum between the Phillies and Harper. They're not at the finish line yet, but I still think they're working towards an agreement. And I do think when it's all said and done, it'll be a Philly.
Let me tell you how much fun it is to work with Jim. One day I came running into the dressing room, burst in, didn't even say hello. He's working at the desk. And I said, you represent Bryce Harper. I'm the Dodgers. I'm giving you 10 years, $300 million. And he looks up and he says, what time's the press conference? I mean, then we just get right into it. It's just tremendous. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always fun to talk with you.
Thanks, EK. Appreciate it, man.
So Manny Machado's a Padre. Free agency lives, all this capitalism, everybody moving around. And you'd think if you were a big market fan, you'd be really excited because you could sign some of these guys. But not everybody wants their team to go pillage other teams. Cue the awesome kid.
I don't want Machado on the Yankees.
That's good news. Why not?
That's good news. I don't want anybody from the Yankees. I don't want Bogarts. I don't want Betts. I don't want Donaldson. I don't want any of those guys. He's so cute. I mean, you can take any other guy in the league. I just don't want anybody. I mean, you're not going to take a guy you hate from another team.
Hey, Brett!
It's kind of like taking Tom Brady from the Patriots and adding him to the Dolphins. It just doesn't happen.
All right, first of all, that was just awesome. Second of all, I didn't know that Bernadette from the Big Bang Theory actually looked like that without the hair and makeup, because that's exactly what it sounded like. But despite what the kid wants or doesn't want, Manny Machado is right now the highest paid free agent in American sports history. And Bryce Harper could break his record any day now. Not bad for a couple of guys that really haven't produced all that many runs. Think of it this way. Manny Machado has exceeded 100 RBIs once. But Bryce Harper, you're like, okay, but he's done it a bunch of times, right? He's had more than 100 RBI, what, 5 times? Nope. 4 times? Nope. 3 times? Nope. Twice? No. All right, so he's only done it once? Bryce Harper has never, ever, 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 ever had more than 100 RBIs. Yeah, but Bryce Harper's got a really good batting average, though, right? Except for the fact that 2 of the last 3 years, Bryce Harper hasn't even hit 250. Yikes. What's Mike Trout going to get? What's Mookie Betts going to get? And for all those players that were whining, how could these guys not break the bank? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to spend $30 million to commit 10 years to one guy who said he doesn't like to hustle and another guy who 2 of the last 3 years hasn't hit 250 and has never had more than 100 RBI. Somebody does, though. Like they say, there's one born every minute. If you're asking me who won this, Manny Machado won this, and Bryce Harper's about to win this. And the teams that are signing him that long, not winning this. I don't want my team to sign these guys to 10-year, $300 million contracts. So if I could do the high voice from the Big Bang Theory, I'd be standing right next to that little kid with my arm around him going, yeah, amen. Because sometimes from the mouths of babes comes wisdom. And I thought right there, you actually got a little bit of wisdom. All right, straight ahead, we're going to get even more wisdom. Although it's not going to be from the mouth of babes. It's going to be the mouth of Pete Prisco. who's going to tell you exactly where some of the high-profile NFL names are going to land. How about Dee Ford? How about Nick Foles, Jadeveon Clowney, Le'Veon Bell? They're all going on the clock next. This is Writer's Block. Back in on Writer's Block, I'm Erik Kuselias in for Bill. Thanks for being in today. And man, I love having this job because I get to talk to people like Pete Prisco, and I get to bring you all the inside information when it comes to the NFL. So Pete, let's get right to it. We're getting pretty close to franchise tag day and all what that entails. But let's start first with Antonio Brown. He meets with the Steelers. They have this, we're all going to go elsewhere. He does this strange Instagram video. I felt like, and I'm not the only one who said this, it's like he's 2 steps away from being in the driveway doing sit-ups like T.O. What's going to happen here?
Well, he's going to get traded. It just depends on who will make a deal for him and what will they give up to get him. And look, there are some teams out there that have been mentioned. You know, you keep hearing Oakland as a possibility, maybe the 49ers. But if I'm the Indianapolis Colts and I look at the way my roster is constructed right now, and I have a ton of cap room, they have over $100 million in cap space right now, I'd make a hard look at Antonio Brown. You bring him in with T.Y. Hilton, and all of a sudden, an offense that found an offensive line last year and now can run the ball a little bit with Marlon Mack, and who knows, maybe they even bring in Le'Veon Bell. A guy like Antonio Brown would amp up the running game, the passing game, and not only that, Andrew Luck is secure enough that he can handle the antics of Antonio Brown. That's why I think it's going to be a limited market. If you're the New York Jets with a young quarterback, the Arizona Cardinals with a young quarterback, the Buffalo Bills with a young quarterback, can you bring in a volatile wide receiver? I don't think you can. I think the market's going to be limited.
What if it was like Green Bay? And how about this? I'm a team like Indianapolis or Green Bay, and I call you and you're Pittsburgh, and I say, I'm giving you a 3rd-round pick, and that'll bump up to a 2nd-round pick if he does so much, and bump up to a 1st-round pick if he goes crazy. Do we have a deal?
Yes, I would make that deal. And I don't think they're going to get a 1st-round pick for him. I wouldn't even put that provision in it. I'd say, look, I'll give you a 3rd. If he does this when we get to the Super Bowl, then it'll go to a 2. I don't think anybody's going to give up a 1st-round pick for him. The contract is expensive, A. Also, you have the guy quit in Week 17 last year. I mean, he quit on his team. That's a bad look to bring that guy into your building. Unless you can sit down with him and try and talk things out, I think that's a risky proposition for any team that's going to make a deal for Antonio Brown. But, oh, by the way, he turns 31 this summer, and his yards per catch went down from in the mid-15 range to 12-something last year. That shows regression to me as an older receiver.
Amazingly, this may not be the most contentious or strangest situation among Pittsburgh Steelers skill position players. Exhibit B, Le'Veon Bell. Could he get franchise tag? A lot of people sort of hear those words, people. They don't really know what that means and how often you could do it and how this all plays out. Can you make sense of this? Like, can you explain it to us like we're a 6-year-old and know what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell?
Well, the threat is of a transition tag, and if you use the transition tag on him, what that would do, it would enable you to match the deal and keep him if you want to, but it also could open up the trade market for him. It's a risky proposition. I think the Steelers are at risk either way. Bottom line is they don't want him anymore. He doesn't want to be there anymore. So why subject yourself to them? If I were the Steelers, I'd let Bell go sign with somebody. I don't think the market's going to be quite what he thinks it's going to be. Let him go sign with somebody and get your compensatory pick back. The problem is they're already going to get some compensatory picks back, so where does it fall in line there? Having said all that, I'm not putting any tag on him. I think they might put the transition tag on him.
All right, but there are other tags that can go on other players, and here's how good Pete is. I can just say the name and then say go, and he can do it anywhere he wants, and he's going to make us all smarter. So I'm going to just say some names, and you take it anywhere you want. Nick Foles.
I think Nick Foles winds up in Jacksonville. I don't think the Eagles will tag him. I think that's a threat. How could you put the $25 million tag on him when you have Carson Wentz in that situation? Jacksonville will not give up draft picks for Nick Foles. If he's a free agent, I think he signs there.
All right, how about DeMarcus Lawrence?
He's going back to Dallas. I think ultimately, if he don't get a deal worked out, he gets a franchise tag. You can't let pass rushers walk out the door.
How about Jadeveon Clowney, former #1 overall pick from Houston?
He's another guy, 25 years old. You cannot allow a 25-year-old pass rusher to walk out the door. Ideal scenario, you get him a long-term deal. I don't think that happens. They put the franchise tag on him.
Dee Ford in Kansas City, who now has almost become infamous for lining up off sides. And if he lines up on sides, Kansas City's playing in the Super Bowl and not New England.
Yeah, but he's also a very, very good pass rusher. And I go back to what it seems to be the theme here. If you have a young pass rusher who can knock the opposition's quarterback on the ground 10 or more times a year, you have to find a way to keep him. I think they tag Dee Ford.
Grady Jarrett. And you know what? There's just not enough people in the world named Grady. It's always fun to say. Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, I thought this was a deal, and talking to some Falcons people, that might get done before the start of free agency and before they had to tag him. It still could. They were hopeful, optimistic. They cleared out some cap room by releasing some guys, including corner Robert Alford. I think in the end, this will be one of those situations where Grady Jarrett signs his deal and they don't have to tag him. But if he doesn't get it done, they will put the franchise tag on him.
Giants have Landon Collins. Will they continue to have him, and how will they sort this out with him?
I think he's going to hit the market. I don't think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to put the franchise tag on a safety. Look, he was very, very good a couple of years ago. His play tailed off the past couple of years, and he's coming off an injury that shortened his season last year. So I think he hits the market.
There you go. Excellent work, Pete Prisco. We certainly appreciate all the information. And anytime we can get you on the program, it always is better for us.
You got it.
All right, now, straight ahead. Why you definitely don't want to have one of the top 12 highest paid wide receivers on your football team. You're saying what? I'll tell you why. That's straight ahead in this Writer's Block.
Somebody go harder than me. If any NFL teams out there watching, hit my phone. Hit my phone. If you're one of them teams out there with a camaraderie bad, the energy bad, the players, haters, I don't want to play there. I don't want to go there. I don't want to waste no time. If your squad out there want to win, and your squad want a hungry wide receiver, who the best in the whole world, tell them hit my phone. Tell them I ain't doing no unguarantees. I ain't even gonna play myself no more for this NFL, you heard?
So he's not going to do any unguarantees. Okay. Antonio Brown is working out and he wants guaranteed money. Hit up his phone if you're interested. I don't expect a lot of beeps or Darth Vader things or whatever he's got going on in terms of a ringtone. All I know is this. At one point in time, it was very good in Pittsburgh, and now not so much. It wasn't that long ago that he said he was going to be a Steeler for life. Do you remember this? Yeah, that's right. Antonio Brown had just signed a deal, was going to be in Pittsburgh forever. But forever didn't last that long. Let's go wide receivers, Antonio Brown, inside the numbers. And let's start with 68. You know, with all the drama surrounding this Antonio Brown contract situation, you would think that he's pretty close to being a free agent. No, he just signed. He's 1 year through a 4-year, $68 million deal. So he wants to rip it up. This is not a situation where he's got 1 year left and he wants to get paid a little early. He wants out of the very deal that he signed just over a year ago. He said he's, I guess what, looking for unguaranteed money? Okay. Well, if you want to give him a big raise, it may not be the smartest thing. Think of this. Next number is 12. As in, of the 12 highest paid wide receivers of all time, none have a Super Bowl. Larry Fitzgerald, close, but no. Steve Smith, no. Calvin Johnson, heck, 1 year didn't even win a game when he was in Detroit. That's called 0 for 12. That doesn't thrill you? How about 0 for 13? And that's currently the 13 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL have combined for 0 rings. That's right. They have as many rings as me, you, my grandmother, and our entire accounting department here on the program. And that list includes Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, and more. There are 2, though, and that's our next number. 2 of the top 20 active highest paid NFL receivers have won a Super Bowl. Their names, Alshon Jeffrey and Doug Baldwin. That's right. Alshon Jeffrey and Doug Baldwin. Jeffrey's making an annual salary of $13 million. That puts him at T14. Baldwin, $11.5 million. That ranks him T16. So the idea is if you pay your wide receivers, you are making a bad investment. You're not going to get rings. Fantasy football is one thing, and I love fantasy football, but in reality, you want guys like Julian Edelman, which brings us to our last number, 42. That's right, Julian Edelman is the 42nd highest paid wide receiver in terms of annual salary. 42nd. He's averaging less money a year than guys like Dante Moncrief and Albert Wilson. But whatever. He's only got 3 Super Bowl rings and is the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Look, the bottom line is this. There's a difference between the steak and the sizzle, right? They always tell you, sell the sizzle, not the steak. But if you're buying, buy the steak and not the sizzle. High-priced diva wide receivers, there's a lot of sizzle. They don't get you championships. They don't get you rings. And if you're clamoring for your team to break the bank to bring in Antonio Brown, it'll make you feel good for a day, but it's not going to make you feel good long term. Think of Antonio Brown like a large piece of scrumptious chocolate cake. You know what they say? Moment on the lips, lifetime on the hips. Moment of joy, lifetime and no rings, because that's not a position that has borne fruit at the end of the day. Well, that's the end of our day, or at least our show here on Writer's Block. Thank you so much to Bill for letting me step in. Thank you to all the wonderful men and women who work on this show, and thank you to you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I'm Erik Kuselias. More HQ rolling along next.